Hey everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer. I'm sorry why I'm smiling so much. It's not just because I'm Mrhappy. It's because every week I know I look at this. Like, this is the only time in a given week where I look at, like, I have OBS up on this monitor over here, and I see this just blown up in full. I have a 1440p monitor actually, but I only record these in 1080. Yeah, and I see this. It's not even the same as looking in the mirror at the morning. I already know exactly what day all this is at least getting trimmed and taken care of before I head to PAX West. So, I had to laugh at the start of the video. So it's been a pretty fun week. I've been chugging through Persona 5 this last week, finally getting through to that. Just finished the third palace today, as a matter of fact. However, during my live stream, I had a bit of issues with frames again. Last Sunday, I had the same exact problem. Okay throughout most of the week, but then Sunday rolled around and it just didn't want to happen. So once again, I am doing this off stream, meaning there will be no Twitch questions at the end. It's just going to be the forum questions, which I have already lined up. So should be on the shorter side of videos, at least when it comes to me. Another thing I want to talk about before we get started with the questions, though, is something that my YouTube channel has been completely unaffected by up until this moment, and that's the adpocalypse. Now, the adpocalypse, for those who don't know, it is the emerging talk of YouTube where a bunch of people who create content are having limited or no ads played on their video, which is the primary source of income over on YouTube outside of setting up Patreons for the content or opening merchandise stores or other revenue streams that YouTube sort of acts as a mediator for. I had no videos that were claimed to be limited or no ads, and then in the last like 2-3 days, I've had a bunch of videos just all of a sudden get, not claimed, but determined as not suitable for all audiences. Now, some of them I can understand because some of them are live stream highlights where I could potentially be using like inappropriate language and things like that. But then there are some that are just really strange, like my live letter, my patch 4.06 notes overview. I think I say the word shit once. That one got flagged. But meanwhile, I then had one of my Let's Play videos where I didn't cuss at all, got flagged as well. And I've been sending them all in to request for review, and they're all getting approved, meaning that they must have just made a change in the algorithm for the system, and that a lot of these are false positives. So for now, it's whatever. It's a little bit of a dip in terms of earnings, but I mean, I'm still uploading the content all the same. I've just got to keep it a little bit closer, watch my language a little bit more. Even in this video, somewhat considering pulling back on some of the language usage. So I have other contingency plans if that falls apart, but I'm never going to charge money for mandatory content for YouTube. So we'll see if it comes down to it. If every video I upload keeps getting this flag and I have to keep going through this request process, then I have some other plans to incorporate for the channel, but none of those involve uploading less videos. The only thing that got me to upload less videos are esports tournaments, and we had the International last week, and we have playoffs for LCS and then Worlds for LCS coming up. So, but just so you know, wanted to let you guys know that was happening currently on the channel. I'm looking into getting it resolved, seeing how it plays out over the course of the next few weeks, and then whatever. I got plans in case anything is just so tedious and annoying that I need to come up with a secondary plan. I got one, and it doesn't involve any less content on YouTube. So just wanted to reassure you guys of that. I have other things to talk about, but I'll save those for next week. Let's get started with the questions. All right, question number 1. Hey Haps, been a while, so I got one joke question, one serious one. I'm guessing the first one, how you doing? That's not even a joke question, man. How are you doing? How you doing? I'm doing all right, you doing all right. 2, me and my friends have decided to form a static recently. We've had a lot of these questions lately. Like, hey, I just decided to form a static and whatnot. Cleared Lakshmi, working on Susano, get your weapons, go into Omega, replace our summoner because he was doing the worst damage in the group by a large margin. About 300 to 500 points behind the 3rd DPS. What's it called? They kept arguing. Well, as soon as someone starts arguing when their performance is down, I mean, that's already a sign. It doesn't even have to be something that's unreasonable. Like, it doesn't sound like you got rid of him for being a summoner. It sounds like you got rid of him for underperforming by a vast margin. Because if he's that far behind the 3rd DPS, I can only imagine how far he is behind the 1st DPS. Fortunate thing is, we seem to have drifted apart because of this, despite me and the raid leader constantly telling him this is the equivalent of a work relationship and we'd still be friends even if he wasn't the static. Has this type of thing ever happened? Yeah, people always say that, man. People always say, oh no, we'll be in a static, it's cool, if we start arguing there, it's okay, we'll just be friends elsewhere. Dude, It never works that way. It should if everyone's being an adult about the situation and can kind of look at it from two sides, and it works out. But as soon as one of the 8 people doesn't do that, it starts creating tensions and it causes stuff like that. Yeah, this is common. I'm not even surprised by this story at all, and it's unfortunate, but it just is what it is, man. It's kind of just human nature at this point. So it sucks. But, I mean, at some point you may be able to get through it. I've had groups that I've had beef with, like individual members, and it ends up just being kind of like drama that has really no grounds. And I've since made good efforts to be more friendly to those people, to apologize if I said anything that was offensive or made them upset, and it's worked out since then. So it may just be a need for like time between you and this other guy for you guys to kind of mesh a little bit more and to have these tensions sort of loosened up. But I feel that eventually people kind of just realize, you know what, yeah, I could do better. You know, they just kind of need some nights to sleep on it, or more reaffirmation that maybe they could work on their performance a little bit. And then for the people who, you know, in the case of the other 7 members of your static, you kind of just get over the tensions that were created there and understand, like you said, that it's a work relationship. So we'll see how it pans out. This is not an uncommon situation though. All right, number 2. Hey, Haps, you doing all right? I'm doing all right. You doing all right? This is becoming more of a thing than the intro at this point, the how you doing. Long-time viewer, first-time askers have a bonus of 1,000 Blitzballs delivered to your door every... And I'm supposed to be trying to keep my language down, right? I'll be the adult here. I do appreciate all your content and look forward to new videos on Mondays with Mr. Happy to listen while I'm at work. Thank you for watching the content. On to my question. I've been debating to start crafting and gathering to start making more gil to furnish our first free company house. Do any of the land or hand classes shine above all the rest? As someone who's not a crafter, I don't want to say anything with complete certainty here. I know that armorer, carpenter are a couple that have some pretty decent things that you can grab. But my number one recommendation, instead of asking me for specifics, go to the market board and go to furnishings and just kind of look at what crafts each thing. Obviously, it would take a while to do all of them, but if you see one job that's kind of trending more so than the other ones, then I would just go with that one. And also, if you're trying to get it for a full free company house, try to get different people to level the different ones. You probably will be able to prevent people from burning out if you all kind of split up the responsibilities of who's trying to get which furnitures for the house, or who's trying to level which things to make the furnishings for the house. All right, number 3. Happy Monday, Mr. Happy. Happy Monday to you too. Long-time asker, first-time viewer. Wait. No, you're a first-time asker. Wait. This is backwards. This is backwards. It says it's your first post. It's backwards. All right. Looking forward to your Dragon Quest Count-Up Marathon. That's going to be tough, man. I want to do something like that, but we'll see. Maybe I'll just play 7 and 8. Anyway, a few simple questions. Never done any relic quests. Would this be something I have to start from scratch? No. When the new quest comes out, you'll be able to start with the new quest. And in fact, unlike the previous relic and animal weapon quests, none of your previous progress can be carried over to this new weapon that's going to is currently dubbed the Eureka weapon. It's not the official name, but it's what we're calling it for the time being. You don't have to go back and do any of that stuff. It's all glamour at this point. 2, never bought a house, apartment, etc. I'll be using 4.1 as my first opportunity. So, if it's your first time getting a house, you better be damn well sure of what house you want, because a lot of people are going to be trying to get housing on the same day, and it is a limited supply. That's my number 1 piece of advice right there. That's how you prepare yourself to get a house, because you don't know if you'll get the house you want. Have a primary house, pick like, I don't know, just make sure it's not like Ward 1 or the final ward. Like, pick a ward somewhere in between, and also have backups in case that first house isn't taken. Like, don't just pick one location. Have a first priority, second priority, third priority, and just try to get a house in one of those middle of the pack wards. I don't think you need to do prerequisite quests, but there are quests to get to those areas, so I would at least do the quests to get to each of the housing areas, especially the I Dream of Shirogane quest for the new 4.1 housing. And 3, I'm a sad warrior hoping Shake It Off will get some kind of change. It is. They promised us Shake It Off would be getting a brand new effect, although they did not say when we would be seeing it. If I had to guess, it would be patch 4.1, but there's been no confirmation of that, so please stay tuned. All right, number 4, Yo Haps. With the next 24-man raid, I feel all past 24-man raids have done a good job in size and scope. The Savage raid, not so much. They feel like a boss rush. What can SE do to make them feel more like raids? I mean, you put trash and you don't disconnect them. The one thing it seems like they don't want to do, so they've given us multiple reasons why the 8-man raids are sectioned off the way that they are. is because there's less people per instance, meaning that there's more instances being created of it. So it's partially a server storage, server space kind of thing. The other thing is that they want people to feel like they can just hop into the boss fight itself, as opposed to this sort of entering a raid that's half done kind of feeling that you can get if you're like joining midway. And it also makes it so that you can segregate each individual boss. I know there's been a lot of talk with people sabotaging runs on Tuesdays of people who are trying to pug, and then somebody doesn't have, or somebody's already entered like a later fight, or they've already beaten the first fight and they're trying to do it again because they don't understand the loot rules and the way that it works. So I think if you put duty completion or duty complete, I don't remember which one. One of the options in the raid finder allows you to negate that happening, but that's one of the main reasons. They want people to feel like they can just enter into an individual boss fight as opposed to entering a full instance that either isn't cleared at all or is partially cleared. So I can get that kind of, but I agree. If I'm gonna have a full-blown raid where it's like all the bosses are connected in the same instance, I do want there to be trash, and more importantly, I want that trash to be meaningful. You know, I want it to have loot, you know, like maybe it drops, you know, crafting materials, or maybe it drops recipes for the crafters, or something to incentivize combat of the trash other than just the trash existing. That's my look on it, but that's what I feel they would need to do. Number 5, greetings and salutations, Mr. Happy. For a bonus, enjoy an hour of your girlfriend cosplaying as Cindy. That's a really weird thing for you to offer me. How you've arranged that, I won't ask any questions. I still haven't bothered seeing what Blitzball all entails. I remember seeing an ex-girlfriend watch the starting cutscenes of the game where a couple handfuls of people are inside a sphere of water playing what looked like water Quidditch. Problem is with likely a quasi-wasted content that would be forgotten, like Gold Saucer attractions. What if Blitzball is integrated as a PvP feature? It doesn't matter. Lord of Verminion is integrated with PvP. Triple Triad has PvP. Chocobo Racing is technically PvP. It's all player versus player content. No one cares. It's not when it shouldn't give wolf marks, because it's not wolf mark PvP. It is not Wolves Den PvP mode. No, I wouldn't feel better. In fact, I would actually feel even worse if Blitzball integrated wolf marks, tombstones, and etc. like that, because it proves that the content can't stand on its own. Actually, tombstones wouldn't upset me so much. Wolf marks would upset me, because wolf marks already don't have a whole heap and hell of a lot of value outside of glamour, but they're directly tied to actual PvP. Not water soccer or water Quidditch as you've described it. So that would, at that point, I would be like, they have no identity for their PvP. They just tied it to something because they could, because they wanted to, because they needed some reason to get people to play it. And even then, it would fail. People would just do Feast instead for Wolfmarks. The fuck would you do Blitzball for? Number 6, yo, second time. I just realized I probably cursed a lot in that last one, so let's see if YouTube minds that. Second time, but my first was so meh, so a bonus of knowledge. If you collect a collectible that is not up to par rating-wise, you can use the lower quality feature to turn it into a normal stack. I know this. I know what you're describing right now. I already knew that. As for the question, at launch, many utility abilities lost damage components, but some didn't. In Red Mage Samurai, I don't agree with Red Mage and Samurai having damage tied to their Gap Closer and Gap Creator. I do not agree with that. Gap Creator actually is okay. Gap Closer, I'm okay with having damage on that. Shoulder Tackle, what's it called? Core. I can't remember the name of the Samurai one. It's been a few weeks. I do not agree with Gap Creators ever having damage components to them. It's I don't know. It's weird to me that Bard's Repelling Shot doesn't have a damage component, but Displacement does, and Samurai's Gap Creator does. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Why? Why would you allow these two new jobs to have that, but then take it from the old job? I understand repelling shot and creating distance from a target shouldn't be integral to your DPS, and it's not integral for the other jobs either. Well, actually, for Red Mage it is. That's not true. That's what you see. Like me even trying to describe it's confusing because it's not consistent. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, no, I agree. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. I could maybe understand Red Mage's Core and Samurai's Gap Closer, but not the Gap Creators. Especially Displacement. Especially Displacement. Alright, number 7. Good happy Mr. Monday. Good happy to you too. Unless I missed something, congratulating on doing 3 years. No, you did not miss it. I forgot about it. I had actually been talking about it. And yes, it has been 3 years. It's now been 3 years, 1 week of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Man, how time flies. Alright, well, that's it. That's it, 30 years. 2 questions this week. What made you decide to start a weekly Q&A show? So I got a shit ton. I've already cursed at this point. I got a shit ton of questions over on my Facebook, and I kept answering the same questions over and over again. And I realized I was taking this time to answer every question individually, and I didn't have any sort of resource for them. So there was no, like, nobody could watch it and be like, oh, you know, I wonder. And yeah, I still get repeat questions during Mondays, but I'm getting them once a week as opposed to like every single day. So it almost acts as a way for people to go, oh, you know, okay, that makes sense. And now I don't need to ask them that again. And it helps create a resource where people can learn about me or ask questions about the game or learn what I'm planning for the channel or what I've been up to this last week or what I'm going to be up to the next week, etc., etc. And it's just a whole different ball game than doing Facebook Q&A, and I like it better. It's a way for me to connect with the people who appreciate my content, and it's a way for me to give my time to show them that I appreciate it back by allowing them to ask me. I want to say whatever question, because we've clearly had questions that I feel are a waste of my time, but reasonable questions at the very least. And as for the second one, I am an I-326 Bard with a 330 weapon, a second 3800 DPS on a dummy. Well, I've tried many different openers and rotations. I mean, a Bard's all down to procs. If you're keeping... So here's a few things I can say for certain, especially since they made changes to Barrage. From what most Bards have been telling me, they've been opening with Wanderer's Minuet, and they've been making sure that Wanderer's Minuet, Barrage, and Raging Strikes all line up with each other. Mostly because they want to try to get Barrage Refulgent Arrows under Raging Strikes, and a potion, of course. So they do a lot of their burst damage in that little part. Part of that has actually become clipping armies Paeon, so you'll go Minuet, Ballad, Paeon. That's what I've seen most Bards doing. If it's changed since I've seen it, then apologies for this in advance. But they're clipping their Paeon 10 seconds early, so they can immediately go into Wanderer's Minuet and immediately line up Barrage, Refulgent Arrow, and Raging Strikes, and a potion if it's available. So those are just a few things that I've seen. But keep in mind that your DPS is very proc reliant. You know, you want to make sure you're not using Imperial Arrows if there's no proc for you to have. You know, if you're sitting at 3 stacks of Pitch Perfect, or if you're sitting, or if you just had a reset, or if you're not using Bloodletter and you use Imperial Arrow when your Bloodletter's already off cooldown, that's a wasted reset. If you already had 4 stacks of Paeon, I guess I can't really knock you for that, because, you know, those are the way that they are. But it's just a lot of little min-maxing things. It's less about your opener and more about how you maintain those procs and how many procs you get. That's important. If you don't get any procs, it sucks. That might get you stuck at 3,800 when you're not actually stuck. Your luck just sucks. It's a lot of rhyming. I don't know if I wouldn't consider that your limit. I think you could take it further. And I think while it's a little bit RNG related, there's probably some mistakes in the way that you're handling your cooldowns and your abilities mid-fight. That'll lead to getting stuck at DPS as well. All right, I'm taking the headset off. The hair sucks. I already addressed it at the beginning of the video. All this sucks, but I don't care. I'm just doing it. Hey, Gaps. It's Haps. It's not. Never mind. First time poster, no bonus because I hate going along with the crowd. You're one of those, huh? It's alright. I can respect it. I know you don't play Machinist. Yeah, so I hope this question doesn't have anything about Machinist. Next time you talk to Yoshida, can you point blank ask him why pick them when Bard does more DPS and better utility? Okay, I'm gonna say this just because you don't need meta. The meta in this game is playing a job well, not what job you bring. So if someone plays Machinist really well, who cares if Bard generally offers better things? You'll be fine with this Machinist. You'll be fine with the dismantle assistance. You'll be happy with the hypercharge increasing your damage. It's not 2% crit 100% of the time with the occasional 15% direct hit rate, the healing buff you can place on a target, as well as the foe's Requiem increasing damage dealt by 3% for the little bit of time that it does. But a well-played Machinist will still be able to get the content done. It's about bring the player, don't bring the job. That being said, as much as Machinists are doing much better numbers now with the recent buffs, I would like to see them adjust it, make it more fun, and maybe bring that utility up. Curious to see how the 60-second dismantle is valued versus the 90-second dismantle, but I still think Hypercharge could do with a little bit of love in itself, considering there's not this vast majority of other utilities. And besides, still got to consider Machinist still brings Palisade, it still brings Tactician, it still brings Refresh. It's not bringing nothing, and it can still bring any of the disables in the form of the Silence, the Bind, whatever. So it's not bringing nothing. It's still just not bringing the exact same things as Bard. And if it does bring the exact same thing as Bard, well then what the hell? Why is the point even having two separate jobs? You know what I mean? So, there you go. The gap is smaller, and that's it. If people enjoy Machinist, someone plays Machinist well, you should value them over someone who plays Bard, which is the job you might prefer, but they play it worse. So that is the key component there. As for if they could make Machinist identity high DPS, low utility, I mean, I saw Machinist do, what was it on Reddit? It was like 5,300 DPS on 01 Savage or something like that. I don't even remember if they were being fed balances or anything, but hey, they're doing pretty well. And I think they're going to always keep range DPS to be around their damage that they are now with utilities, as opposed to identifying one as high damage, low utility. I don't know. I'm for the idea of Machinist being the high damage, low utility ranged physical DPS, but meh, it is what it is. So we'll see how it pans out. We'll see how the feedback keeps pouring in from actual Machinists, as opposed to people who just kind of see Machinist and judge it from that point. All right, number 9. Hey, Mr. Happy, finally Sim here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, the weekly Q&A show where we ask you questions and you answer them. I do indeed. Really wish you read the incorrect grammar. I can't do it, man. My brain cells just... who is Mr. Face? Okay, I'm not gonna. I was gonna go with my meme answer because I think someone asked this like a month ago. Denmo, if you follow him on Twitter, he makes a lot of comedy-related skits for Final Fantasy XIV machinima style things, and he's hilarious. And Mr. Face is a character he created and has appeared in many a YouTube video at this point. I kind of feel burnout for 14 playing it just to get my gear for Paladin. And what do? Play something else, man. I'm playing Persona 5 and like mixing in a few days of Final Fantasy XIV here and there. I'm of the firm belief, dude, I play Final Fantasy XIV so much. If I don't stop playing it for small spurts of time, I'm gonna force myself at that point, I'm just forcing myself to play it because I'm paying for it. As opposed to being like, well, you know, I kind of played it for, I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks, almost completely 4 or 5 weeks straight, with taking very little breaks. Some of those days were 16-hour days, some of them are 7-hour days, and it's like, it's literally hundreds of hours over the course of a month of playing a single game. I think I got my fucking $13 worth on that game. So you know what? I'm gonna go play something else and make it so that feels fresh. Then when I come back to 14, that feels fresh. Then I play the other game, that feels fresh. New patch for 14, now that feels fresh, etc., etc. That's just MMO syndrome that you've hit. What do? Play something else, and then when you feel like playing 14, play that. What's going on? Let's see, number 10, Mr. Hippie. That's not true at all. First time poster, so since you love Blitzball, I'm just going to ignore the rest of your bonus. Anyway, on to my question. So I'm a Samurai main like the rest of the game. I just haven't had any luck with my drops in Savage. Yeah, I know that feeling. I picked the Bard, and man, you would think the introduction of jump potions, they would make the grind from 1 to 50 easier, but as long as it ever was. It's entirely based on how quickly you can get through those early quests. It doesn't matter. It is faster to level, but you still gotta get through the quest. And 1 to 50, in just Palace of the Dead, if we're talking about like not needing to do the main scenario quests, I mean, that's still faster than it used to be. 1 to 50 was it was let's just say there were worse times. I would honestly say if you have a friend who's willing to power level with you, you can do 1 to like 40 in a few hours. I did 1 to 34 in 3.5 hours. I could have done it in 2.5 hours, where you just tag mobs and they kill them. You tag mobs, they kill them. You tag mobs that are several levels above you that you can't kill feasibly on your own, and then they just kill them off in one hit as a level 70 character. It's so fast. And now with some of the additional benefits like the Alamigan earrings, you can just do that for like a really long time. The brand new ring obviously stops working at 30, but that also opens up the opportunity to use things early on, like some of the other EXP bonuses you can get. Like 1 to 10, obviously you still have like the old helmets, and then now you have the Far Eastern garb, or the Far Eastern attire as well, with the EXP bonuses on it. So I mean, that works. I mean, you're already 35, so I mean, it at least cuts down the amount of time from 35 to 40, but you also need a friend to do it. So it's a little bit different. It's still faster than it was a long time ago. So trust me, we have it better now than we used to. And a new player for 1 to 50, they have the main scenario, so it is what it is. Is 4.6k DPS on Sam good? I'm assuming you mean 320. Yeah, no, 4.6k is good. That sounds like a good place for you to be. You're doing all right. Number 11. Hey, Haps, long-time viewer, but first-time asker, so I have a bonus of free chicken incentive for all the things you can't muster the motivation to do. Listen, I've had a lot of chicken in my life. Even if it's free chicken. If it's free chicken, I'm just going to be skeptical of it. Because good chicken's not free. Bad chicken is free. So I don't trust it. That's all I gotta say. Anyway, my question is, apologies if you answered it already. If I have answered it already, I generally just skip it and say, hey, I answered this. What are your thoughts on a job like Blue Mage being made into a tank? Yeah, I've answered that a million times. It's the job that to me makes the most sense. But I mean, here's the thing: no matter what, Blue Mage is going to be a hot topic if it ever does happen, mostly because I think everyone has a different idea of what's an acceptable type of Blue Mage. Go into the world and learn skills. You could do it with job quests. Do they become more like a druid and transform into monsters instead? No, that doesn't really match what they want. You know, in previous games, Blue Mages have not just learned spells from getting hit. They've learned spells through things like Lancet when you had Kamari, who was like a Dragoon and a Blue Mage. You've had just witnessing the ability, and so maybe you could be a DPS. Some people think, well, they've learned White Wind. You know, White Wind was OP in the old ability, so was Mighty Guard. Maybe they could be a healer and a support. Everyone's got so many different ideas for it that ultimately when it does happen, it's probably going to be awful to like 40% of the people who play the game. So that's all I gotta say. All right, number 12. Hello, Mr. Happy. I've been watching. Oh, God, I see underwater sport. I'm just going to skip this entire first section. I was never much of a PvP player, but with the massive change that came with 4.0, I gave it a shot. Found that I liked it. With the new feast season starting up inside, I was going to aim for top 100 and even for the new armor reward. However, without the ability to communicate, which is one of the big things that keeps me from PvPing more frequently, I find it's impossible to coordinate with the team. I use quick chat commands as often as possible. I find they're often ignored. Yeah, until you get to the higher tiers, or unless you get people from the higher tiers in your games, it happens. It's super common. Is there a better way to coordinate? No, here's the thing. Even if you could type and communicate, ultimately there's one consistent factor here. If people don't read the chat when you do quick chat, they're sure as hell not reading the chat when you type to them in the middle of a game. That's the way I have to look at it. So ultimately, if you're playing with uncooperative teammates, they're going to be uncooperative no matter which tools you have available. Unless you have giant things that pop up on the screen. Even then, I'm not 100% convinced they would pay attention to it. And two, I have a hard time finding any kind of guide for Feast. I know it's crazy. I want to start in the beginning, expect to do well. Are there any tips you could offer me to help new PvP players to the Feast? There was a really good post on Reddit a few days back, and from people who actually like Feast more than myself. I don't Feast much anymore just because of the whole not being able to type. I get jumped, dude. When people see my name, they see Mr. Happy, they just kill me. It's whatever. If I don't get the defensive maneuver, I don't even have to have the offensive one. If they give me the offensive one, I'm double dead. Because they're going to double down and bone me every time. It's worse in 8v8s. In 4v4s, though, I've had so many games where it's just like, get him! And that's that's it. And I know that because I've streamed those games prior to Stormblood's launch, and they go, hey, Mr. Happy, saw you in the game, just killed you. Anyway. So use quick chat to organize who's doing the things at the beginning of the game, and use quick chat throughout the game. But on top of that, just be careful about who you're targeting and understand that it's not always about, hey, get the healer and don't pay attention to anything else. Don't line of sight healers is a big one. If you're chasing someone and you don't know where your healer is behind you, you should probably stop chasing them unless you are 100% sure you will kill them and be able to get back to your healer before they burst you down. Because as soon as you're around the corner from your healer and they can't cast Cure on you, a good team will just be like, and that guy's dead. Because when you line of sight your healer, you're dead. That's the big thing. Don't line of sight your healer. If you are the healer, don't line of sight your DPS. Don't like try to go behind something and wait for them to come to you. You want to make sure you're always within their line of sight without overextending. If they're overextending, you're probably overextending just because you're trying to follow them to make up for their reckless play. And that can lead you to getting targeted and brought down and everything. There's a lot. There's so many hints, and I'm not a super experienced PvPer. Those are just some of the big things I see people screw up in often in games. So I would like do a quick Google search on or go to Reddit and type in like PvP tips or guide to Feast or something like that, because there are very experienced PvP players who do make fairly frequent contributions to the PvP community over on Reddit. Number 13, we've had some great questions that I've had a lot of very long answers to this week. I edited this post for a subject that concerns me more at the time. I hope you understand that. You could have just said hello. Oh, I see, because you're... Okay, never mind. It said, this is someone who normally gives me roulettes. So instead they just asked me a question, which is strange. I don't even remember, but I asked you for advice in... Oh, no, maybe this isn't that person. No, I think it is, yeah. I asked you for advice in a strange situation I had with the guild where friends in the guild, but another part of the guild deeply despised me. Yeah, I remember this. Going back in the days, no one, the ex-guild leader got into another guild where I have a friend. Since that ex-guild leader got into that guild, my friend suddenly silently avoids me, runs away, logs offline. I asked the ex-guild leader. And I asked the guild leader from that guild for information because I don't know what's going on. I ran some content, told the leader I was back, and I only get, well, since I have a complete picture of the situation now, next time I hear something receiving these whispers will be the last. I was like, what is going on? They asked for a complete picture with no reply. So another guild has a problem with me. I'm not allowed to ask why. Should I write an open letter to the... I mean, dude, at this point, I can't give you advice. Like, I have no idea. I'm missing all the details. I'm only hearing one side of it. Unfortunately, I don't have any more advice for you, man. You can do whatever you want in this situation, but I can't decide this situation for you. Because I literally have such a limited scope of information, and I'm also not a mediator between two people. That's not what I do. So... I don't know. I mean, you can write it if you want, and if they reply, they reply. But sometimes people like I'm like, dude, I don't want to do drama, so I'm out. This is my situation. I'm out. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them be like that too. So even if they're like, oh, open letter, like, oh god, I just don't want to deal with this. Some people just aren't going to want to read it because it's just like, I just want the situation done with. So I don't know what's going on, but it's crazy, and I don't understand it. So you can do whatever you want. If you think that's the right choice, you go for it. All right, this is the last question on page 1. Number 14, first-time viewer, have a bonus of $1 billion US. You can only acquire if you stream 200 hours of Blitz. Anyway, short and simple, do you think quadruple physical comp should be the speedrunning? Could be the speedrunning meta. It will be the speedrunning meta. If it's not quadruple, it'll be 3 melee and a red mage. But it's almost definitely going to be quad melees like it was before. Well, quad physical like it was before. And 2, do you think triple piercing meta will return? They keep buffing Dragoon? Yeah. But the thing so far in Stormblood is meta hasn't mattered at all. Only the people who aren't good enough at the game to just play their job well care about the meta more than the people who just play their jobs well. I've done 04 Savage with like a bunch of other melee DPS with the different ranged. I've done 01 through 3 pugs with like all sorts of random. It's not a problem. Just play the game well. Being good is being meta. For speedrunning though, like you said with the first question, there is a very specific meta because you want the absolute best output when you're trying to speed kill. So triple piercing meta may return in speedrunning, but any player who is enforcing that as the standard, as opposed to looking for players who play well, is making a mistake. And that was true in Heavensward. It's just as true in Stormblood, if not even more true in Stormblood, where a lot more jobs are actually viable now without being made fun of at the very least. All right, number 15. Happy howdy, Mr. Happy. Have a Taru-sized hat. I'm guessing it's Taru-sized because it's in my web browser. All right, that's a hat. We got a roulette. Mystic Attractions Part 2, Future Attractions, BNA, Spoiler 2.0, Lore Questions. See, Lore Questions, I see these every week and I don't pick them because I probably don't have the answer to them. I'm not the lore guy. Athos is the lore guy. I'm going to go with BNA. I know Rowena uses us as tombstone acquisition slaves for her slave empire. What do you think she's really after? Dude, I'm telling you, she's going to be the final boss of Final Fantasy. She's going to take all this accrued knowledge. She's going to reveal to us that she is Allegan and that she had long since lost her memories or the information or the knowledge to rebuild the Allegan Empire from scratch. And then now that she has all this and she's acquired all these people who are under her thumb who have no choice but to listen to her or face her wrath, that now she can take over the world again and start the Allegan Empire from scratch and something. I don't know. She's got something. Something up here is happening. We just don't know what yet. All right, the next one, a guy. I don't understand that. You did that last week. I don't understand it. Thanks for answering my housing question. Second question, so no firsty bonus. Yeah, no first. You don't have to do it. People do it, and then they just give me blitzball shit, and I don't want it. Let's see. If you want one, we'll just have a Bard Barrage of previous questions bonus. I don't remember what it was, so I'll take it. As long as, yeah, okay. This week I have a question concerning healers. Since you did the Healer Happy series, I've been leveling my 3 healers to 69, but the last few Stormblood runs, I've been getting tanks that want to pull wall to wall without giving me any notification of such intent. Yeah, the tanks end up dying after tossing a healer's entire kit of regen shields and cures. I get tossed to blame a healer being a bad healer, which I've mained since I've played the game over a year ago and didn't have this problem. 3.57. Need answers. So here's one of the big things. A lot of tanks do the wall-to-wall pulls in the 65, 67, and 69 dungeons. I think almost all healers and experienced tanks agree that if you are not running with people you know, that is a bad idea. Or if you are, or unless the healer is incredibly confident and tells you to do it. Even then, you can't be confident the DPS are going to make it a quick and easy pull anyway. So the thing is, if you are not geared for those pulls, or you do not rotate your cooldowns very, very well, you will die on those pulls. And people are so used to speedrunning stuff at level 60, and then 61 to 63 dungeon aren't so hard. When they get to the next tier of dungeons, it sucks for them because their defenses aren't high enough. And then even the level 70 people who get their item level capped, and so they don't have to worry about gear at all. They don't rotate their cooldowns properly. They just think, oh, well, you know, max item level, blah, 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 blah. And then they get destroyed. And it's in all honesty, there are some big pulls that are very reasonable in those dungeons, in Bardom's, in the 67 dungeon, and in Cash from Mabanya. Most of them are not reasonable. I'd say the one pull that's most reasonable, or two pulls, are both in Doma. I'd say that, I guess technically 3 pulls. So the very first pull, where you just have 3 mobs and no slashers, even if you're not super experienced, I'd recommend pulling those 3 mobs and the slashers at the next part. You don't have to do the rest of the parts big, although personally, I think also doing the last pull before the first boss, doing all 6 of those mobs is a little easier because you don't have AoEs to dodge. And do the Colossus, fight the Colossus on his own in Doma Castle, please. Then you have the first 3 mobs after the second boss. Sometimes people just pull the first one. I think you could pull the armored thing plus the 2 Pugnacks easily enough. And then you have the ninjas at the end. I've seen people die to those ninjas, so that's a little questionable. But those are the easiest big pulls to do across all the dungeons. Just people just they think they're Superman, and they're not. And it can go really bad even if it's just the DPS not killing them fast enough. But no, I wouldn't say. I'm looking at your list here. No, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit less. It's really just point number 3 where the defense is lower and people don't rotate the tank cooldowns enough. But, I mean, yeah, sometimes you got to babysit heal people in those dungeons if they do that. And you just don't get out the DPS. Maybe you swiftcast a Holy on White Mage or throw out a Miasma 2 on Scholar. But you got to be damn well sure that's not going to get the tank killed in the process. Like, if you don't have Ether Flow stacks on Scholar, don't do it. If you don't have any sort of instant heals on the other jobs, don't do it. So it's definitely less in those leveling dungeons. Once you get back to level 70 dungeon, it gets easy again. Question number 17. Hello, Mr. Happy. No bonus this time, but instead you can my thanks. Okay, you know what? You're welcome. That's what I got. My question this time comes to you about PvP. All right, let's get 3 questions actually. Let's see. 1, have you played The Feast? I have played a handful of games, only one of them which was ranked, and it was a pretty good game. We won. 2, if you haven't, are you planning on playing for the glamour? I don't care about glamour. Do you know if there's a place where we could look at a 3D model? There used to be a website that you could. I don't know that there is anymore. I don't want to answer. I don't want to say yes or no. I just don't know. My main question, would it be possible to make a video detailing a basic strategy? Yeah, this kind of goes back to the old question. I'd just be recycling information that's kind of somebody else's since I'm not an experienced Feast player. It's like taking advice from someone who doesn't play baseball on how to play baseball, which every baseball fan practically acts like they do that anyway. I don't know if it's not coming from a place of intelligence or knowledge. It seems almost disingenuous. It's like just collecting information other people have had. I have experience with The Feast, but not recently. So they're super generic advice pieces, and I guess I could do that, but it's up in the air because it wouldn't be coming from a place of knowledge, and I don't think that's very smart for me to do. All right, number 18. Hi there, Mr. Happy, longtime follower, new to posting, so I have a bonus from a fellow San Diegan of California, burrito and or a fish taco. I'll take the burrito. Fish tacos are good here, but I'm a burrito kind of guy. As a jack of all trades job enthusiast, I consider not maining a specific job. Do you believe that players that focus not on one particular job but focus on many jobs be rewarded more or less than players that have prioritized one? I think you're not rewarded less, but the rewards are spread out across all the jobs you are trying to play. It's also very likely that you may play a lot of jobs only okay, but none of them really well, which can make rating a little bit of a tedious factor for your teammates if that okay is like not good enough, or like you're like, oh sorry, I don't really have a main, so I'm just kind of picking this up right here. Then you die every fight because you're not super experienced on the job, and then maybe next time you go in as a different job. It really depends on how far you're taking this whole jack of all trades job enthusiast thing. But you're rewarded the same if you're completing the same content. You're just rewarded in, your rewards are spread out across so many places that maybe it doesn't feel as satisfying to obtain said rewards than if you were focused on a single job. I do think it's actually a good idea, at least for tanks, to try playing a healer in raid at least once, and for healers to try playing a tank at least once. DPS, if they could play either or, helps as well. Just to get perspective, even if you're not good at those roles and you're still just focused on the one role you're sure you're good at, having the perspective of the damage taken and the cooldowns required, it kind of helps you not lash out and rage at things you kind of have no idea about, especially as a DPS. Hey, healer, what the fuck happened? Well, you know, I ran out of ether flow stacks because this person took too much damage. Plus, it's like, well, then just fucking fix it. Yeah, you don't turn into that guy. You turn into someone who goes, what happened? And they go, oh, I ran out of ether flow stacks. Oh, okay, sorry. What can we do to make that easier? You honestly just playing at least 2 or 3 jobs, 2 or 3 different roles in a raid can help create that mentality, which is much healthier for the raiding scenario. Okay, no hello on this one. I feel like this person never says hello. One day, you'll pay for that. Do you think devs will consider getting rid of Tackle Mastery from Monk, as seeing how everyone agrees it's crap and totally lame? No, because you know what? At the end of the day, thank you for the 30 potency buff on shoulder tackle. That's what it is. No matter what you say, it is a 30 potency buff to shoulder tackle, because you're never going to use earth tackle. You're probably almost never going to use wind tackle. So what is it? Fire tackle plus 30 potency on shoulder tackle. Listen, they got rid of 10 potency on everything else, but they gave us 30 potency on that. I'll take it. All right, number 20. Sup, Mr. Happy? It's me, the monk guy again. Hope you're having a good time with life. It's a little hot in San Diego. It's actually cooling down now. I don't have the fan on, and I feel okay. This is a bit of an odd question, so I hope I can display it correctly. How does it feel to know so many cool people within the groups you're in? Like all the people you know from various video games and conventions. That's to be pretty awesome. It's not really a lame question, but it's not really applicable to me. Like I meet a lot of people, and I've met people in games and then seen them at conventions before I did YouTube. So for me, it doesn't feel any different. But a lot of the times, those people convey very positive emotions towards me, and that's something that feels good. You know, when somebody says, hey, I saw you at PAX West, which, by the way, is coming up, and I will be there, so if you see me, say hello. And they say, hey, I saw you at PAX West. You know, I saw you outside the Dauntless booth. I go, oh, yeah, I remember. And then I tell them their name, because I'm pretty good at remembering, depending on when and how I met you and the conversations we had. And they go, yeah, that was so cool. And it's like this moment where you met a complete stranger, you knew nothing about them, but it's not weird when the next time you see each other, like on the internet, there's this like moment where you're able to convey between each other, yeah, I remember that moment. How have you been? Oh yeah, I remember you told me about that. And it just becomes a normal conversation. It doesn't, maybe the people who enjoy the content, maybe it's something that's more extravagant for them, but for me, it's just become normal, and it's humbling, if anything, not so much cool as it is humbling. Because that's not something I think many people expect later in their lives, to have those kind of experiences and to have people show that level of appreciation. So cool is just not the word. So when you say cool, I'm kind of too focused on that. But I'd say it's humbling, the experience that you've described more so, because it reminds you that you are lucky to be where you are and to have what you have, because not many other people get to have the experience that I'm experiencing when I have moments like that. All right, number 21. Greetings, Happerino. I hope you had a swell weekend. I did. Persona 5, Final Fantasy XIV. Can't complain. I'm the international for Dota. Oh, it's so hype. Now that we're weeks into Stormblood, almost 2 months, and have gotten comfortable with Savage and the job changes, do you think Square Enix got the difficulty of Savage correct? I think they got it where they wanted it. I'm always of the idea, I like to see things really push the envelope with challenging, but I also do agree that you can't have content that's accessible to a super small portion of your community if it takes away from the content that, the vast majority would have. So I'm not that satisfied with Savage's difficulty this time around. It worked out for me because I didn't really have a static, so it being the difficulty it was meant I got to Pug 01 and 02 the first week, then Pug 03 the following week, and I've managed to clear 04 Savage every week at this point. And it's felt good to do that with my situation, but if I was in a static, I would have wanted it to have been more challenging in a sense than what it was. I'm really happy that they've mastered creating clarity in mechanics, and they didn't hold back, it felt like, but they've gotten to the point where we've seen so many things before, and they've gotten so good at properly showing us what a mechanic will do that it comes down to just being able to figure out the puzzle and less of the fight mechanics itself. So I feel like they got a lot of things right. I would like to see them kind of push the item level scaling, or what item level they anticipate you having when you beat the fight, a little bit higher than what it is right now. Higher health, maybe, on the bosses. Not a whole lot. I don't want it to be like, you know, A3 or A4 Savage, where it's like so few people can clear it because those numbers are high, but just a little higher than where they were. So it really feels like I'm chugging through this fight, and I'm like up against something that like I really have to focus on, as opposed to you know, I could just, you know, whatever, I do the mechanics and the boss falls over at some point. 2, jobs going from 3.x to 4.0 onwards. In your opinions, what were the best, worst changes? Bard, easily the best. I've now played Bard to 69. I played it at 70 at the media tour. They nailed it. Like, if that job's going to be a DPS and not a support ever, which I know it will be a DPS forever, and they're never going to do the whole support thing, that they got it right. You rotate through songs, you have new songs, all your songs feel useful. The ones that weren't useful or didn't feel great, like Peloton or the old Paeon and ballad effects, which are all in roll actions now, they're all there. They did a really, really good job with Bard. Easily the best changes. The worst changes, on the other hand, man, that's tough, because like Summoner didn't see so much changes as they saw they saw pruning. Machinist is kind of the same way. Worst changes though, man, that's a tough one to just nail down. Like, I can name individual things that aren't great, but to name an entire worst change, Machinist's heat gauge, I think, is not a bad idea. It hasn't worked out in a fun way yet. So that's why I don't want to say Machinist is the worst change. And Summoner also. The idea of summoning Bahamut is so great, but it just didn't pan out in a satisfying enough way with how long it takes to get to Bahamuts and how many Bahamuts you get throughout a fight. And the way that you use your Ether Flow stacks. Like, the worst changes are somewhere in Warriors changes, Summoners changes, and Machinist changes, but I can't pick out just the worst. Like, I can think of things that conceptually are good and then maybe in practice don't turn out so well, and then you have Bard where everything's great. I don't know, and we'll have to wait to see what the Shake It Off ability is going to be later. Number 22, hey, Mr. Happy, I hope you're having a great day. If not, well, I hope it gets better. No, I've eaten. I've had my coffee today. It's been a pretty good day. Still feeling a little under the weather, and it is a little cooler today, but I was able to finally sleep without the fan on. You may see me doing this occasionally. It's the only way I feel like I can clear my sinuses without actually, like, blowing my nose. Like, it almost feels like it does something. I've been playing 14 since 2.x, and you've enjoyed my content this entire time, so thank you for watching all of that. How do you feel the community of 14 has changed since 2.0? It's changed for the better, which seems strange because a lot of people are going to hear that and go, what? Are you kidding me? No, it really has. When 2.0 first launched, there was a greater amount of animosity between members of the community, and while that animosity is still there, some people still take it too far. That's always going to happen with the internet, but I feel like it's much more measured now. Like, when people say they don't like things, I see way more constructive feedback. Even if it gets kind of shut down and noised out, I see people making honest efforts more frequently. And I see what the community comes together to do, and things like, you know, when they had that huge issue where they were trying to get a bunch of people to show up in a spot for Yoshi P for like Square Enix's anniversary stream or something like that, and like nobody showed up because of a screw up. You know what our community went ahead and did? They went ahead and created this like thank you this makeup thing for Yoshi P. You know, they made it up to him with this like whole reminder that, you know, that event may not have gone well, but don't forget about all this other great things. And then you have, you know, a Stage Reborn and them working on their production, something that's super community driven. You know, you see a lot more community driven events in general, and I feel like overall it's a much more positive experience now than it used to be. The negativity is still there, and if you look for the negativity, it will always be there. But I don't know. I feel like people are way more measured in their expectations and in their feedback, minus a few select individuals. So It seems ridiculous because I'm sure so many of you have so many negative experiences that me saying that makes me sound dumb, but I've just been watching it from like all these different angles for so long now that I've watched it evolve, and I feel pretty confident in that being at least my opinion on how it's changed its 2.0. The vitriol's still there, but it's way more measured in a sense. All right, number 23. Good morning, Mr. Happy. I hope I made it in time for this week's Q&A. If the thread is not locked, you made it in time. So congratulations. Hey, that's some battered fish. Have not done the event yet. Here are my questions. I have started playing a Conjurer, and I'm used to mouse over focus macro for cure. I'm trying to practice doing DPS and healing, but after using stone, the GCD is locking me from healing for a bit. So the GCD shouldn't be locking you. What can happen is if you're spamming the stone button, and then right before the GCD comes up, you've tried to press cure, there's a good chance you've already queued up another stone from the spell queuing system that our game uses. So one thing I would say is take a very measured approach to healing and DPSing at first. You know, learn how many GCDs, like you have to learn every different tank, you have to learn how you can DPS for that dungeon. You know, oh, this tank, I can do 3 offensive spells between me needing to heal him. Or, oh, if I just throw up a regen on this tank, you know what? I don't need to heal him at all the rest of the dungeon. You know, I could just throw regens on him and with the pulls and his armor and his defensive rotation, we're good. Oh, he's playing in tank stance? Well, I might want to keep my eye on him a little bit more because he might take some spike damage or something along those lines. So it's different every single time, but take it very gradually. Don't just try and dive into being one of those people that like DPSs like 99% of the time and throws out that one heal only when necessary because they're super experienced at it. Work your way up to that point. Heal like 70% of the time, DPS 30% of the time, then 60, 40, 50, 50, and then until you reach a right level of comfort and be prepared to adjust it every individual dungeon that you do. 2, with all the discussions about best in slot for different jobs, do you think Square Enix is not having a well-organized gear progression from Veritas gear to Omega Savage? You mean creation gear, I'm assuming is what you mean when you say Veritas. No, I think it's fine. I mean, it's pretty much online. It's pretty much in line with the way it's been every patch. So no, I mean, it feels exactly the same to me. In 3, I'm practicing with my Paladin, getting 2.9k on Omega 4 Savage. No, that's good. I've seen Paladins pull 2.8 to 3.2k on 04 Savage on Neo X Death himself pretty frequently. So 2.9k is pretty good. Generally, if you're passing the test, you're fine. Honestly, there are people who would not pass the test for Omega for 04 Savage's dummy and could still beat the fight reasonably, not just because other people are picking up slack, but just because that dummy that dummy knows you have no party buffs, no mechanics, and you're just hitting it with whatever you have over 3 minutes, you know? So the amount of DPS you do to that versus the amount of DPS you do in actual 04 Savage is usually varied. For most people, it's higher in the actual fight, because they have all these party buffs to work with, and then once they master getting all their uptime, it becomes pretty good for them. So depending on the job, of course, Black Mage doesn't have any mechanics to do, which is great for them on a dummy. But yeah, I'd say you're doing pretty good. I'd say you're good. You're set. That's it. Oh, look at that. The final question on Mondays with Mr. Happy this week. Hey, Hap. Hey. It seems like a lot of questions were asked about the feast already. However, something not touched was one's mentality regarding competitive game modes. A lot of people are new to the feast and may overlook that. It can be quite frustrating when your Dragoon insists on picking up all the medals. No, he's trying to do his job because he knows if he has more medals, he takes more damage and he dies. And he's like, I'm a Dragoon, perfect. Let's see, where I lost my point. Or your healer just runs to the spawn point at the first sign of danger. What do you recommend to do in between matches to ease the frustration? A super inappropriate answer. I'm not going to throw it out there. Can SC do anything about it? No, not really. You can't force people to be more competitive. One of the big problems with MMO PvP, the games are most often not designed with PvP as the primary feature of the game. It is a feature within this world. So when that happens, it kind of creates a rift in what the competitive nature is of your game. One thing Blizzard has done over the years with things that aren't World of Warcraft is they very clearly created, this is a game for people who are competitive. So there are people that hop on and aren't as competitive, but there's a greater, I guess, congregation of players who are like-minded, and therefore can handle those play sessions and climbing ladders better than people who join a game that has PvE, but oh look, it has PvP over here. World of Warcraft has that issue, Final Fantasy XIV has that issue, pretty much every MMO PvP has that issue, whereas things like Dota, Overwatch, League of Legends, they have different issues. They have people who are trying to be competitive and people who aren't as competitive or who aren't as good at being competitive. So we just have such different issues that I feel like it really comes down to that. I don't think there's any way to ease the frustration. I mean, if you're competitive and you lose, it feels awful. That's just it. You're competitive. Losing sucks. That's the bottom line. You can't make losing suck better. You can maybe make yourself better at taking the loss, but you're always going to have to like struggle against that feeling. So no, I don't think SE can do anything about it. I mean, it's just not a competitive game in a sense of like player versus player. So creating that mentality is difficult. It's not a great answer, but it's the best answer I got. That's going to be the last question for this episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. Thank you, everyone, for watching this week. A reminder, yes, I will be playing Dauntless this week. The Founders Alpha begins this Friday, and I'll be streaming it for many, many days, although it's looking like Sunday for Subscriber Appreciation Day that I do over on Twitch may or may not be Dauntless, just because people are voting right now to see what will actually be played. But I'm looking forward to it, and very many Dauntless videos will be popping up on my channel starting this Friday through the rest of the Founders Alpha. Also, PAX West is in a couple of weeks. I will be there. I will be attending a bunch of different things at the event. I'll have plenty of stuff to come back with and talk to you guys about, and I am planning a meet and greet of some kind, but I'll have more information on the next episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy about that one. So if you're going to PAX West, keep an eye on my social media channels to know when you'll be able to find me at what places, in case you want to say hello, shake my hand, take a picture, whatever it is you want to do, high five. Just don't give me the reach around. I don't want that. But anyway, thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and ask your questions for next week in the forum thread in the description of the video as well. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.